We've been watching severe weather traverse, moving eastward through the southern states. We were watching as Fox Weather was tracking the storms out. We do know that at least one death has been confirmed as a result of today's severe weather. Standing by is Bill Bunting. He's the Deputy Director of the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center. He's coming to us from Norman, Oklahoma. And Bill, first off, we've been tracking this in Texas earlier today, kept moving further and further east. Last time we checked in on it, it looked like it was in Louisiana. Where do things stand at this hour?
Yeah, good to be with you, Austin. It's been a very busy day across portions of the southern U.S. Unfortunately, the night looks to continue that trend. Right now, the strongest storms are located across portions of Mississippi and Alabama. They'll continue to move east fairly quickly overnight, moving into the majority of the state of Alabama, even western Georgia by sunrise tomorrow morning. The environment continues to be very favorable for tornadoes, damaging straight line winds, even some hail. As the storms become more linear, more of a solid line, the threat for the strongest tornadoes actually diminishes some, although the potential for quick spin up tornadoes does increase. So we want folks not to let their guard down, to keep tuned to the latest information. Make sure you have a way to receive warnings that can wake you up at night. Nighttime tornadoes are especially deadly. The weather radio is a great source, at least a secondary or backup source, and very valuable for events like this that have a very apparent danger during the overnight hours.
If a storm is imminent in somebody's immediate area and they don't have time to get out of the way, what do they do?
In the building that you're in, go to the lowest floor, the center portion of that building, away from windows and exterior walls. Ideally, cover yourself with a mattress, a helmet, get under a table, anything you can find that will help diminish the risk of being hit by airborne debris. That's the most important thing you can do if you suddenly realize a storm is upon you and there's no time to get out of the path.
Right now, we're looking at some aerial footage over Texas. Of course, we saw some of the damage, and these are sad images. But Bill, I got to know. We see roads in these areas too. You were just talking about structures. Let's say there's a storm that's imminent, and you're driving on the road. What move do you make in that case?
First thing I would say is avoid, if at all costs, being in the path of a tornado in a vehicle. What I would do is I would move at right angles to the storm, get out of the path. Typically, if you're listening to any sort of live coverage of the storm, whether it's through your favorite app on your phone or local radio, or even have a weather radio with you, you'll know the storms are generally moving towards the northeast or east. And so moving south, ideally, would get you out of the path. If it's approaching and there is a structure nearby, I would probably head to that structure if I thought I had time. To be honest with you, though, there are no truly safe options in that situation, which is why we so strongly encourage people to be aware of the threat and not put themselves into a position where the storm is upon them and they have very few choices.
How do surveyors measure these storms? We're looking at some of the damage in Alvin Perlin, Texas, right now. How do they use the types of scenes that we're looking at right now to eventually determine how powerful these storms are?
Well, they'll first of all they'll talk with eyewitnesses, get their firsthand accounts of how the storm approached and how strong the winds were in their perspective. We'll look at structures that were damaged. We'll look at structures that weren't damaged. We'll look at surroundings, light poles, telephone poles, trees. We'll look at the nature of the damage. It's a somewhat of a myth to think that if the damage is in one direction, it was straight line winds. Many fast moving tornadoes, especially the less intense ones, produce damage in one dominant direction. But they'll look at if the winds tend to converge as they do in tornadoes, the damage will tend to have a convergent signature to it as well. And we'll look at buildings that were damaged and we'll look at how well it was built. We'll look at the structure of the walls and the foundation and the ceiling to get a sense of how well built, how well connected they are. And then from that, we actually have a toolkit that allows us to estimate within, a few miles per hour what the likely wind speeds were that caused that damage, and then what the upper and lower bound of those probable wind speeds were. And so you look at enough structures, talk to enough people, look at radar data, and you can begin to put together a pretty good picture of what happened and how intense that storm was.
When will we be past the worst of it? When will this storm system dissipate?
Well, it's going to move eastward. And so on Sunday, the threat, which will be of lower magnitude than what we're experiencing today, will move into the southeast and mid Atlantic. We still think there will be damaging straight line winds and some potential for quick spin up tornadoes. But in general, it's moving towards the coast and it will move off the coast Sunday night. And then over northern New England will move off during the day Monday. So Tuesday looks to be a relatively quiet day. There are stronger storm systems approaching, but they will have a tough time getting the moisture and instability that we see in place today. So the good news is at the moment, we don't see a repeat of today in the near future.
Anything else you want to share with folks that were in the path of this storm or are in the path in the future of the storm? Or is there anything else you'd like to get out there before we wrap up?
Well, we've seen the damage here at the Storm Prediction Center, and our hearts go out to those that have suffered damage. And it just reiterates the importance of what we do as meteorologists, working with emergency managers and the media to get the word out. And after this event moves off the coast, it should be quieter for a while, but cold season, as we call it, wintertime tornadoes can be especially dangerous because it's a time of the year that people aren't expecting severe storms. It can catch people off guard. So really critical to monitor the forecast, have your plan ready, and act when the warnings are issued.
Bill Bunting is with the Weather Service. Bill, we appreciate your time. Take care.
Thanks, Austin.